Hey Wolfpack, and welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. Today, we're reading 3 more scary camping stories. But first, what's your favorite SCP, and why? Comment down below. With that said, whether you're sitting around a campfire, on the night shift, or even laying in bed, let my voice soothe your nightmares. I love camping, but after my most recent trip, I don't think it will ever be the same. I set up my tent on a nice flat ground and collected some wood for a fire. The night came with all its nightly sounds, and I relaxed at the hooting owls and chirping crickets. Even better was the fact that no one else was around, or so I thought. Help! It was subtle. I almost missed it. The voice came from deep within the woods, and for a moment, I didn't believe what I was hearing. It sounded female, but oddly enough, I just couldn't tell. Please, help! It continued. I shined my flashlight between the bushes and walked around a little. To be completely honest, even as a grown man, I was paralyzed with fear. So, I did the responsible thing and called the police. That's when things went from odd to very, very weird. The police told me to just ignore it. I explained to them that someone could be injured and probably needed medical attention, but they assured me otherwise. When I kept pushing and asked why, the police told me, "Sir, if you ever hear that voice again, ignore it and do not respond." Well, I did hear it again, but I didn't ignore it. It was almost midnight when I heard the voice a second time. I awoke to someone whispering, "Help!" and it sounded like she was just outside my tent. I went out to check and there was no one there. But the voice continued from a distance, "Help! Please!" Again, I grabbed my flashlight and looked around the area that I was camping in. I was too afraid to follow the voice into the woods, especially since the authorities themselves avoided it. But I struggled morally, trying to decide whether I should go and help this person, or listen to the police, who seemed concerned for my safety. But then, I heard another, different voice. This other voice, which also seemed to be coming from the woods, was an octave lower. Unlike the first one, which cried for help, this one was loud and demanding. "Quiet!" The other voice growled. "No one's going to help you!" Once I heard that, I was sure someone was in trouble. I called the police again. When I informed them about the second voice coming from the woods, the police seemed even more concerned. They told me that I should pack my things and leave the campsite immediately. They said that hearing the second, more manly voice meant that it was getting desperate. They also said that the 2 voices were coming from the same person. That part was bizarre and confused me, to say the least. It was at this point I dismissed the police in that area as crazy, but not before telling them off. I got angry. I told the police that if they didn't get down here to come check it out, then I would do it myself. I said repeatedly that a woman could be in serious trouble and that it was their duty to help her, but still they refused to come. All they kept repeating to me over the phone was, "Do not enter the woods, sir." They seemed more afraid than I was. Once I hung up the phone, I heard the voices again, a gentle, "Please, someone help me," and then a growling, "Quiet! No one's coming!" It was a little past midnight at that point, and I couldn't live with myself knowing that I had the chance to save someone's life, but instead cowered. So, I grabbed some things and ventured into the woods. When I entered the woods, the voices ceased, just like that. No cries, no whispers, and no commands. Even the owls and crickets went away. Nothing but dancing leaves and creaking tree branches could be heard. I stopped walking and looked around. A full 360 degrees. "Hello? Anyone here?" I called out. Nothing. "I'm here to help," I continued. "Where are you? Are you okay?" Still nothing. I thought of calling the police again, then chuckled to myself. I found it strange, but somewhat comforting that I didn't find anyone out there, especially since I kept hearing it over and over again throughout that night. Nonetheless, I was still creeped out, so I packed my things and finally left the campsite. I didn't know why the police, of all people, were so afraid. Worst case, someone was in actual danger, and we've all just failed them. Best case, morons who think saying "help me" in the middle of nowhere is a good idea for a joke. To be honest, when I heard the voice the very first time, I didn't think it was a joke. When I heard it the second time, along with that other voice, I became a bit more concerned. And same with the third time I heard it in the woods. But when I heard it again a fourth time, a week after I left the campsite, coming from inside my own house, I was very, very concerned. I guess it's unusual to out one of my kind like this. Myself, I mean. We don't stray too far off a reservation or any secluded areas. Anywhere else makes disposal difficult. Life as a skinwalker is rough. Now, as unusual as this is, my predicament is worse. I have a friend? Marcus. A nice guy I had made friendly with. He had a good life with a few connections. No one would miss him. Now, my meat suit was getting boring, and a new start was what I needed. Camping had been his idea. Funnily enough, we had similar things in mind for it. I just wish he moved before I did. Being on the run isn't easy when your new disguise has family that knows they wouldn't just leave everything behind, and then you would have to respond like their relative would. Easy, if it were not for said relative messaging first. The night it all went down a creek was just 2 months ago, a nice little campsite with a small fire and 2 friends in their sleeping bags. It was fun while it lasted, until I slid off more than his sleeping bag. The new suit was different. Something like me should have known something was off the moment I put it on. The power, though, it was better than any drink or drug I ever had. Everything was much clearer, the lights brighter, even the air was different. A literal breath of fresh air like I hadn't had since my first skin. I cleaned up before heading out in my new car. Friends and family mourned with me when I asked if my friend had beat me home, only to realize the former me wasn't coming back. I wish that were true. Life was good, even with the adjustment period. Then, I got a letter close to the end of the month. A small sticky note on the door that made me look over my shoulder for the next few days. Give it back! I thought maybe it was the elderly neighbor a house over whose lawnmower I had borrowed. The writing, though, was too familiar, and this new body came with a new trick. I could smell who held it. I wasn't too happy to smell my new suit. The next few days were fine, except for another note one morning. It was a birthday card for her first birthday, and my scent on it. No writing in it either, but it sent some message I didn't understand or like. I found out when I was out prowling for someone else. A full moon was out. I found out the hard way what it's like to have every bone in your body break, and strangely, what it felt like to have my own skin again. Everything was a blur from then on. From the woman I jumped, the blood, then the running. I woke up in a ditch covered in blood. Normally, I leave someone else like this. And who's there standing over me? Marcus, skin intact and stretching with a smile on his face. I admit, I froze. I'm not used to seeing one of my throwaways up and about, much less with their skin back on. He didn't do anything I thought he would. He extended a hand and helped me up. I'm there, shaking, bloody, and he throws me his keys and tells me he got to me too late. That grin never disappeared. He said he'll catch me next full moon. Well, he didn't, as you all can read. I shacked up in a cave and pulled up a reverse Jesus on him. I woke up and found scratch marks gouged into my side of the stone, and thankfully, not me. He was there, not smiling. I made him kinda mad, actually. Funny. You'd think the whole stealing his skin would do that. He made the same threat again, only this time, he's keeping a closer eye on me. He doesn't come into where I'm staying. He just sits outside, tapping the windows every night, or standing so his silhouette is in them. It's getting closer to a full moon again. I can't outrun him like I did the second moon. He knows I'm scared, and he's made sure to be here when it happens. I just wanted a new life. I should have gone for the elderly neighbor instead. I should have said no to camping. I did a lot of things I shouldn't have done. But one thing I did right, getting a bunch of barbed wire and silver dust. The big bad wolf can huff and puff, but he'll get more than a grandma to eat. He's at the window again, tapping, like I've forgotten he was there. I hope my idiot mutt doesn't run into any of those wires as well, and judging by my aching joints and his groaning, it's showtime. When I was 8 years old, my best friend Stan and I would take a road trip with his parents out to their 130-acre ranch in the small town of Cody, Wyoming, where they raised a few horses. The house, stable, fenced-in area where the horses could roam, a couple other small buildings only took up about a fifth of the entire plot of land they owned. Stan and my favorite things to do when we spent the week out there was to set both our tents way out in the middle of the field, far enough away that you couldn't see any of the buildings. We would stock up on water, soda, candy, hot dogs, s'mores, and everything else you'd need for a perfect kid's survival week. We set up our tents about 20 yards apart and built the fire in the middle of our tents as it started to get dark. Survival Day 1 was coming to an end. We tried to avoid using any electronics or technology of any kind to make sure it was a true survival week. Instead of walkie-talkies, we decided to try the old tin can and a pizza string communication device. We had 2 empty aluminum cans that once held tomato paste and about 80 feet of white string. Used a nail to punch a tiny hole in the bottom of each can so I could feed the string through the bottom and knot it from the inside to avoid it pulling through. By this time, it was pitch black outside, except for the dwindling fire. We each took a can and carried it with us into our own tents, zipping up the tent door behind us, while leaving a small opening at the bottom for the string to pass through. We tested it by making typical 8-year-old jokes and then said goodnight. Our tin can communication device worked better than expected. Exhausted from setting everything up and feeling confident that we were true survivalists, we fell asleep almost instantly. "Your fire is bright," softly spoke an unknown voice. This sudden break in silence woke me halfway up, and all I could respond with was, "What was that, Stan?" "Your fire is bright." Now, wide awake and sitting bolt upright, I realized this wasn't Stan speaking in the other can. The soft voice spoke as if it was genderless. It was neither a man's voice nor a woman's. In a panicked, yet stern tone, I asked, "Where's Stan?" "I sent him home. It's just you and me now." "Why are you in his tent? Who are you?" I questioned, in a shaky voice. In an almost amused tone, the unknown voice replied with a simple, "Who said I'm in his tent?" Completely frozen in fear, I heard the sound of footsteps outside my tent. Every rational and sensible bone in my body tried to warn me not to look, but I couldn't help it. I slowly turned my head to the right side of my tent, and my eyes soon followed. Pressed deep into the canvas of my tent was the outline of a face. All I could make out were where the eye sockets were. I sat silently, holding my breath for what felt like hours. The unknown face, pressed firmly, staring straight forward, didn't move an inch or even blink. If it could blink. Until I couldn't hold my breath any longer. As soon as I let in a tiny bit of air through my nose, the face jerked immediately in my direction, looking directly at me, and made an ungodly sound while violently clawing at the side of the tent. Adrenaline kicked in full throttle at this point. Unzipping the front door to my tent, I bolted the 20 yards to Stan's tent, somehow managing to unzip his door, dive in, and re-zip it in mere seconds. Stan, scared half to death, asked what the hell was going on. By the time I was finished telling the story of my night survival pure terror, the sun had risen. We'd climbed out of Stan's tent to check our campsite. To my surprise, and Stan's lack of surprise, nothing was disturbed. That was until I spotted the string that had connected the 2 cans had been laid across the middle of the fire all night long. Stan commented on how I wasn't responding at all last night, so he finally gave up and went to sleep. As for me, I spoke to something, and the other end didn't connect to Stan's aluminum can. It connected directly to something unknown, something I hope to never contact again. Thanks for listening, Wolfpack. If you want to submit your own story, the links for my email and subreddit will be down below. I've also created a Discord, so if you want to join that, the link will be in the description down below as well. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And with that said, have beautiful nightmares, and I will see you next time.